The Rise of Africa, the continent, the diaspora, and BRICS explores the relationships that are affecting the global economy right now. This book explores the relationships of the African diaspora's influence on the African continent and why this is important in stabilizing relationships with an understanding of how BRICS impacts the future, good or bad. You can order your copy of The Rise of Africa today on Amazon.com.
Neo-diplomacy is the new currency. Neo-diplomacy is the new currency. The reason that I can say that is you have a couple of different factors occurring right now as we speak on the world stage. The dollar is being disrupted. Nations are no longer wanting to engage with the United States. But the third factor that affects each and every one of us is that there is a diaspora from the African continent that's willing and able to engage our brothers and sisters on the
All right. Shalom, salama, siemi, shalom. Greetings to all my Israelite brothers and sisters from around the world, whether you're the bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the house of Israel, or you're a Gentile grafted into the house under the blood of Yahushua HaMashiach. I welcome you all this morning. Sorry I was running a little later than normal. Had an interesting story with my dog. I had taken my dog to the dog park yesterday. That's what I normally do, but before I got home, I was running an errand, and it took a little bit longer. You know, with German Shepherds, they like to have consistency. They want to know the schedule. So I was at the dog park. I was listening into Sister Char's living room. That is every Monday, and that is via Google Meet. So it's a much more intimate space to share and fellowship. And as I was doing so, as I was listening in and taking some very good notes, my dog sees another dog, and he's in the dog park, mind you. And I'm kind of getting towards him as he's interacting with the dog outside the dog park. It was just a small little poodle. And the chain link fence is very weak. And so my dog had realized a couple of days ago that he could go through the chain link fence at the bottom, and he did that. And so in my horror and dismay, as he's making his run towards the dog, I'm telling my dog Ray to stop and Ray still lunges at the dog. Now the good thing is that Ray did not bite the dog, so you train the dog on when to bite, so it knows when not to bite. And he doesn't bite other dogs. He doesn't bite other people unless he gets prompted. But for a 90-pound German Shepherd to, accost an owner, and I'm out there in flip flops and just loungewear, making that jump over the fence onto some leaves that did not allow me to stick the landing, had messed me all up. And when Ray saw that I leapt that fence, he looked at me with bewilderment like, I'm just trying to play with the dog. The dog is just flying, taking off. The dog owner is chasing after the dog. And yeah, with that, I got a messed up heel, foot, and that's caused me to kind of wobble around with sorts. So that's going to be fun to engage and interact with the kids today, as I will tell the kids a story of how my German Shepherd had me crashing out. But I had to laugh because I understood the lesson that the Most High had given me. Because generally speaking, that would frustrate me. That would cause me to anger and say, why, Father, why? Why did the dog was in the dog park? He even had his little choker prong on. I thought that would do something. But no, he put the snout on the dog's nose, or not nose, but foot, to kind of like engage like he was playing. And it wasn't anything fun or friendly for both dog owners. And no, I don't. I'd go to the dog park. I'd put my little flip flops on. I'm in dress shoes for, about 8 hours. My feet have to kind of, air out. Your feet have to air out. Wearing the dress shoes and the shoes like that, it's not natural. When you go to the continent, everybody's in open toe, open, some sort of sandal. That's natural. When I first moved down here to Florida, all I did was just wear flip flops. And I still do. And I used to have, sandals back in the day when I lived in Kansas City. That was the summertime, had little nice leather strap sandals and everything else. Now I just wear flip flops. But the way that, the dog park is that all the leaves and everything else piles up to the fence. And in that particular spot, they just got rid of a tree on that little corner area, and that tree had given shade, and that was a shady area with a lot of dirt and leaves, and I did not stick the landing. And so the phone was out of my hands. My AirPods stayed in my head as I do my best gymnastic horse vault over the fence. You saw this big brother, doom, and where I'm at, the dog park is right next to the little recreation park, tennis court, basketball court, and you see the Indians are all quiet because this brother done face planted in the leaves, trying to control an out of control dog. It was classic. And I think the only thing that hurt on me more than my foot was, my pride. Had that leash on Ray. Come here, Ray. And we just went on out there. I tried to hobble myself back down my stairs and, to the parking lot to find out if I could see the owner and see if his dog was okay. That's what you're supposed to do. But, he was probably out of sight, like, I'm getting as far away from here as possible. So he probably thought his dog was going to be a snack of sorts. But as the white man was chasing after his dog, and I'm kind of parting my way, it did have me thinking about these red herrings that are being provided and exposed. And I say that the red herrings, they get exposed because the bait is right there. And when the bait isn't, when the formulation of the bait, when it does not have the intended consequence and it's a friendly nudge of the snout rather than a, vicious, ferocious baring of teeth and growls and things of that nature. The intended target, the intended outcome, the intended action is not what was anticipated. And so now, as we're beginning to see, yes, I understand that, folks, the concept of the law that's, targeting that community, that alternative community, I get it. However, we all have to understand why that alternative community grew about anyway, in the same manner that we had been, quote unquote, given this particular level of access with the whole civil rights and now the limiting of segregated manners, because the whole intent was to step over us in terms of what the real goal was for the civil rights access per se. And we have seen that because that's literally what happened. Everything got piggybacked off of us. And see, we're all in the same boat, and it's like, no, we're not. We were never in the same boat. You all used our plight for you all's wickedness. And let's call it what it is. their ability to provide that framework so then they can be grinning and sinning and having us grinning and sinning along with their lifestyle. And that's the same lifestyle that had been imposed on our people via chattel slavery. How our young men and women were all being raped. The process for men was called being buck broken. And in a sense, that buck breaking still had occurred even till this day. And we still see that buck breaking process with not just our men, but also our women. And because they have targeted us over these last 50, 60 years with the almost now 60, 70 years with their quote unquote civil rights, the freedom to defile and debauchery was what they wanted in their quote unquote framework of civil rights. Right? Civil rights and the debauchery, that's what it is, hand in hand. So now the whole deconstruct of the civil rights, and that's what it is. It's a deconstruction. And I have to frame it in that argument because I know a lot of our people are like, well, it's only for federal contractors, and the federal contractors going over the alternative lifestyles and all the other stuff. Yeah, I get it. I get it. It makes sense. It's practical. I have sons and I have daughters that, you know, I get it. It makes sense. But here's the great thing that races do, that white supremacy does. It will literally dangle on out, it will literally cannibalize itself and cannibalize its segments in order to maintain white supremacy. See, a lot of folks, when they talk about Esau and Edom and everything else, Jacoba brought the point along in Jasher chapter 90. But there is a lot of things that was happening when you read in Jasher and you read how Esau was very cunning in terms of how he was able to control men through different manipulative tactics. The very first scene of manipulation was with his father, Isaiah, after he had done given away his birthright to Jacob. So the manipulation of it is continued throughout this day because it's gone through different transformations. And everything that is here, everything that's done, everything that's quote unquote codified in law, if you read all the laws and all the statutes and all the ordinances that they have, it usually does not make a lot of sense. There's usually a lot of loopholes and double talk because it tells you one thing. Excuse me. Yes, Isaac. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Brother Charles. Isaac. It tells you one thing, and then the intent is the other, And then the courts will say, well, based on the law and the interpretation of the law, the lawyers were able to argue that this interpretation, and now this law has to go under a judicial review and it has to be kicked back to the legislative bodies. So then that law can then be more codified with other subsections to close up the loopholes, which is always there to allow for for different manipulative tactics. And that is how this government has been founded. That's how these codes have been founded. The codes are founded for the legal manipulation that if something doesn't work on out or it's not quite up to the intent of what they wanted to have and what they wanted to live with, and I would say live with what they wanted to tolerate, then they can easily go through and restructure, rewrite, reordain. And guess what? It's a legal maneuver, a legal mechanism. Understand the 14th Amendment is still in the courts, because what the 14th Amendment does, it challenges the fact of perpetual citizenship. The 14th Amendment is what grounds us here to the United States. And when that gets changed and there's no legal grounding, then everything that is done with the quote unquote civil rights and segregatory actions and things of that nature, well, that would then be for who? Legal citizens. And if we are no longer quote unquote legal citizens, and that has us in a constitutional crisis, and being in a constitutional crisis, dun dun dun, yep, cue the internment. Thank you, Brother Charles. Yes, even their computer software has back doors. Come on now. Come on now. And yes, with that 14th Amendment, we are no longer citizens. And if we're no longer citizens, then guess what? We become a bunch of aliens. It becomes a what? A constitutional crisis. And in a constitutional crisis, guess what? Well, you can't have folks that have a challenge of citizenship roaming the streets, can we? See, that is what we're getting to. It's the access. And the reality is, they're more afraid of life with less access to us than our access with them. See, if you didn't know that in 2020, during the pandemic, Black folks, African Americans, Hebrews, you name it, were the number one demographic, social demographic that was creating businesses. We weren't standing around and saying, well, woe is me that I need to sit here in this pandemic purgatory. No, a lot of Black folks went through and created businesses, understood the need, and honestly, the separation allowed for our creative juices to flow. And that was a time where Black folks started to understand and realize the worth that they had and started to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. Remember that? That was only less, well, it's about 4 or 5 years ago now. And over that time, they were saying, remote job. And now they're trying to bring people back from the remote elements because why? Because Black folks are now working 2 or 3 jobs. They're working their primary job and then they're working their secondary and tertiary jobs. That's allowing them to become more prosperous, to make more inroads, to establish more relationships. Now, there hadn't been a quote unquote outpouring of Black support, but after the election and after folks were realizing what was going on, and you had Black Project 2025, and you've had quite a lot of different mechanisms to do what? Those mechanisms were used to allow us to understand how to deal with ourselves and build business with ourselves. This, to me, in terms of Trump's policy, although folks will want to label it, oh, it's just with the contractors and this and that. Yeah, but for him to even go after that, what that's showing is there's a deliberate intent to deconstruct. And they've already started the deconstruction with the 14th Amendment, with the legal immigration, quote unquote. So it's not new. It's just that what he's trying to do is now triangulate our legal status and put our legal status in question. So then when we are, quote unquote, collected up, then it's going to be okay, which countries, union, whatever, who wants to take them? Oh, you want to know a people when they are shouting out, let them shout out from a detention facility of some sort of manner. Let them shout out with a decree of, hey, you have to keep your papers on you at all times for your personal safety. And you have to understand when people will say they'll never want to do that. That will mess up their economy, and that will do this and that will do that. Look, their economy is already messed up. Their economy is already messed up because here's the reality: this economy has been de-dollarized for really the last 2 3 years with bricks, and now it's becoming more de-dollarized And here's the kicker, with European nations now selling the dollar back to the U.S. And you're absolutely right, 1619 brew. This is incrementalism. Increments. Just can't throw it on out there. Increments. Because why? Now we're in a season where the weather's warmer. And as the weather's warmer, guess what? We're out and we're in about. Yeah, de-dollarization is a real thing. And when I share with you these stories and these articles, understand that it's not just, oh, well, they're going after warships. What a lot of people fail to provide in context is why they go after warships. This is interesting because this is the Express. Houthi rebels launch missiles at U.S. aircraft carrier in Israeli airport in huge blitz. In a dramatic turn of events, the skies over the Red Sea witnessed a tense confrontation as missiles streaked towards an American aircraft carrier by Nelson Espinal. Here's the thing. When I read this, I have to ask myself, were they allowed or were they authorized to allow this story? And it says here the Houthi rebels have launched an attack against an American aircraft carrier and an airport with 2 missiles targeting the American assets. And those missiles, they're talking about hypersonics. The attacks come in the aftermath of U.S. aggression against Yemen, with attacks over the past few days all over the country. The Yemen Army released a statement confirming their attacks. The first targeted Ben Gurion Airport with 2 ballistic missiles, and the second targeted several enemy destroyers, as well as a Truman aircraft carrier in the Red Sea with several missiles and drones in a clash that lasted several hours. Well, what does that have to do with anything, Brother Karras? What that shows is this. It shows that they are actively having to engage another front. And that front is a front that creates the ability for vessels to navigate. Now, understand, vessels that had been navigating the Red Sea, the Strait of Hormuz, but primarily the Red Sea, the Bab al Mandeb, the Strait of Bab al Mandeb, between Eritrea and Djibouti on one side and Yemen on the other, forming the strait, created a military blockade that was causing that Eastern Mediterranean nation to suffer, because anyone that was actively supporting or doing business were being targeted. And the ceasefire that happened back in January that ended last week. And it was that Eastern Mediterranean nation that ended the ceasefire. So now understand that as you are going through, you're now starting to see a lot of their empire crumbling. And I would honestly say that the lack of access is a good thing, because I'm going to put this on out there. If this was the former Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, that had done this, military leaders would have been calling for his head. This is from The Atlantic. The Trump administration accidentally texted me its war plans. U.S. national security leaders included me in a group chat about upcoming military strikes in Yemen. I didn't think it could be real. Then the bombs started falling. So as of yesterday, March 24th, the world found out shortly before 2 p.m. Eastern Time on March 15th that the United States was bombing Houthi targets across Yemen. I, however, knew 2 hours before the first bombs exploded that the attack might be coming. The reason I knew this is that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, had texted me the war plans at 11:44 a.m. The plan included precise information about weapons packages, targets, and timing. This is going to require some explaining. I already kind of gave you the background. Again, kind of a good thing that there's really no black folks in the Trump administration, especially in the defense department. Look, they got rid of us. Do you see all the black generals that they got rid of? And in a way, I was actually kind of happy, because I said, you want to know what? I'm glad they got rid of them, because I'm glad that they can't find fault in Judah. That's Jeremiah 50 and 20. They'll search for fault in Judah, none shall be found. But now this is where they want to have us around, because traditionally, when we're in their places, in their spaces, we have all been victim of their scapegoating. Imagine in that scenario, he's going to surround himself with black folks. No white folks are like, you are not going to put the blame on me. I guess they got DEI to blame. Blame DEI. Well, it was a black enlisted person, black junior officer that created the Signal account. It was Sir, you don't have any black folks on your communications team? Find me one. Sir, by the time that they transfer, they'll make sure that they have that timestamp of when they got transferred so that they can't take the blame. Also, sir, no one's requesting to be of color or requesting to be in this unit that supports you. This is what we are seeing right now with our very own eyes. And on the other side, folks are chasing after us because we understand that, all right, if we're left alone and people leave us alone, then we generally tend to thrive. And I was looking at a video. And the video was showing, it was right here, Cindy's Villa. I want to go ahead and share this. It was showing some of the Gentiles there. And one of the young Gentile ladies was explaining how that their racist behavior is really in the background and they try not to say anything in the foreground. And as they're talking about things in the background, they're expecting folks to quote unquote be on code. So this is from Cindy's Villa, and I'll just show you the introduction here. Give me a second. Here we go.
My name's Kylie, and I'm obviously white. A lot of racism in white families occurs behind closed doors. I've been over at friends' parents' places and heard them say some pretty obscene things about people of color, assuming that I am on their side simply because I am white.
So that's from Cindy Villa's channel. All I could think about when I saw that was, yeah, they're telling on themselves because now they're off code. And they're off code because, simply put, they're scared. I'll share this. This is Jeremiah chapter 16. Now I want to go down here. I'm going to start here at verse 18. And first I will recompense their iniquity and their sin double, because they have defiled my land, and they have filled my inheritance with the carcasses of their detestable and abominable things. Let me tell you how they get down on the continent. They basically come in the name of, you said it, you know it, Eurocentric Christianity. They come as missionaries, they come as NGOs, as nonprofits, and then they end up stealing and destroying things. They come up pillaging, and they defile a lot of our young boys and girls and men and women. Reading verse 19, Jeremiah 16, verse 19. Oh, Yahuwah, my strength and my fortress and my refuge in the day of affliction. The Gentiles shall come unto thee from the ends of the earth and shall say, surely our fathers have inherited lies, vanity, and things wherein there is no profit. And let me tell you, the YouTube, the TikToks, the Instagrams, they're coming and they're off code. And now they're off code, spilling the family secrets, spilling the beans. So now, whatever lies that they have been able to hide behind, well, those lies are not very fruitful, are they? They don't pack as much oomph. So now there's a problem. And all I'm saying is, this is what the word says. They may not like it, they may not believe it. Matter of fact, they don't have to like it and they don't have to believe it. But I'm going to do what the Most High told me to do and tell the truth. Because the time is coming that when they have less access, they'll be realizing how the access that they had with us being victuals, perpetual servants, they'll realize the lies that they've inherited. And it will be even on a much more detrimental basis. So now here we are at this time. And now at this time, we're seeing them putting themselves in their own crosshairs. No, don't chase us back. Don't chase us with gifts. Don't chase us with anything. Come on out. We have to protest together. We got to show strength and solidarity together. And it's amazing how our people have now become more solidified and on code. No, we're not doing anything. We don't need to do anything, and we won't do anything. All I'm saying is it's interesting seeing these folks turning on each other. Just exactly, Brother Rich. They're turning on each other. But they're doing the exact same thing that the Most High said that they would do. So, with that said, family, stay safe on out there because they know that we know that they know how they want to trap us. Well, let's not get caught up in any traps. This is the time to build and to work together. As I had said earlier, neo-diplomacy, my neo-diplomacy course is $27, a special $27. It will go back up to $97 on April 1st. You have less than a week to sign up for the course, $27. Shoot, with inflation, that's a dinner and a half. Understand how to work with one another. Understand how you see yourself and how you're interacting with one another. Because honestly, now this is the time to really start working with one another. I pray that our people have gotten the memo, are getting the memo, and that the Most High is waking up our people in this process. So, with that said, family, I got to get up on out of here. Hallelujah. Thank you all for your support and your prayers. Again, this helps me to do what I'm doing. It really does. It is a blessing. So with that said, family, I do have to get up on out of here because I gotta get back onto this educational plantation. I shouldn't say that, but y'all know what I mean. Okay. So with that, family, y'all be blessed. Most High willing, I'll see you all tomorrow. And with that, shalom, salama, siyemi, shalom. Please, peace and blessings, Yasharah.